What is your Tinder horror story? A little backstory. A few years ago I was dating this girl and her father really hated me. Which was a bit odd as most parents love me, or at least lie about it real well. He was just a huge prick and I always called him on his sh*t. Anyways. Her parents got divorced. We broke up a few months later etc etc. Fast forward to around a year later. Me and girl from Tinder were dating for a few months and things were starting to get serious. We're at the point where she wants me to meet her family. Mother. Stepfather. Little sister. Why not? I have no problems meeting them. Let's do it, I said. She told me how excited her stepdad was to meet me, as it turns out we both happen to be Kansas City Chiefs fans. Well. FCK me if it wasn't the same arsehole father of my ex-girlfriend. My buddy isn't the smartest man. He picked a chick up and drove to a motel. They were walking into the room and she says, "Oh sh*t. I forgot my purse in the car, do you mind if I go grab it?" He says, "Yeah, that's fine," and tosses her the keys. 5 minutes later he walks outside wondering where she is and his car is gone. Edit. For clarification. Yes, he got his car back. I think the police found it about a week later. I don't think she was ever caught though. If you're in Baltimore swipping, don't let her near your keys. Auto-zoned. Buddy of mine hit it off with this girl and after a few days, she invited him over to a house party. Sure, he says. What could go wrong? He shows up and is introduced to a few of her friends. All guys. As the night carries on, more and more guys show up and very few girls are actually at the party. After they start talking about how they all know this girl, they find out that she invited them all from Tinder. Every guy was there not to hook up, but to populate this chick's birthday party. Edit. That is so very sad, but also kinda clever. Got a Tinder notification on my phone. Realized I don't have Tinder and was holding my girlfriend's phone. Timed a date with a famous chef where I was taken to a dive bar, where he promptly started talking about how famous he was. Cute, we drank and watched sports. He proceeded to tell me you're cute and this eventually went to I am going to make you bleed. He then invited one of his friends to come along. I went outside and he came up to kiss me. I was drunk, so I kissed back. Cute. Eventually he proceeded to tell me how he was being charged with battering his ex-girlfriend, but he totally didn't do it. Cute. Eventually when it came time to pay the bill, he lost his wallet. Of course. I get stuck with it. I'll pay you back. Full stop. Needless to say, I never got a payment. Then he leaned up against me. I thought he was trying to kiss me again, but I looked down, and he was peeing on me. In the street. Peeing. On. Me. Cute. I swiftly, being too inebriated to drive, went and got myself a hotel room and a hot shower. Never again. The only Tinder date I went on, the woman told me her goal was to get pregnant in the next few months. I noped right out of there. Showed up to the restaurant. Waited about 30 minutes. Ordered myself some food and was about to leave when he texted me. There's a liquor store across the street from the restaurant. Can you pick me up 2 6-packs? I told him I wouldn't. He says he's decided to play frisbee with his dog instead. Deleted app. Went to liquor store. Picked up wine and went home. He texted me for a month or so after to tell me he's just bought tickets to see me dance. I'm a retired ballerina. Haven't been in anything for a few years. Then he texts me an hour after and tells me how great I was on stage. I never responded. Dating is too confusing. I'm all done. He texted me for a month or so after to tell me he's just bought tickets to see me dance. I'm a retired ballerina. Haven't been in anything for a few years. Then he texts me an hour after and tells me how great I was on stage. He murdered that poor girl. Probably not as bad as some of the others I read on here, but I thought I was really hitting it off with a guy I met on Tinder, until a few dates later. And he broke down crying in the middle of a heated maquillage session telling me he thought he might be gay. Tinder guy was apparently engaged when we met and while we were dating. Also found out 2 weeks after the fact that he got married. We had still been talking every day. I started talking to this really sweet guy for about 2 weeks and things were going well. Then I started getting calls from this girl, who he claimed was his crazy roommate that was in love with him and kept trying to get him fired from jobs. Turns out, she wasn't the one lying. She was actually his live-in girlfriend. They had moved here together from a different state. Apparently he wasn't actually a citizen and was trying to obtain papers. Thanks. Tinder. Met a girl at her work at like a moment's notice. She was a waitress and there was literally nobody else in the entire place. We talked for a few hours. Then another dude shows up to meet her from Tinder. She would later blog about the experience and describe me as dull and unattractive. She apologized to me the day she posted it. No hard feelings. I just thought it was a crazy story. Edit. Link removed. Met girl. She was quite vocal about no hookups. We went out. Got drunk. She used the line "want to come back to mine and put your penis in my vagina?" So I did. Just as we started she said, "Oh, I love you. I love you. Do you love me too?" I didn't reply. I just thought concentrate. Concentrate. Apostrophe. It was a good night. But then she got really demanding and argumentative. It takes me a while to get used to starting to see someone. I like to get to know them a bit. She was talking about kids within a day of meeting me and I wasn't quite ready for that conversation. Then she got really shitty that I wasn't as committed as her. Called me all sorts of names and said that I shouldn't be on Tinder if I wasn't going to take our relationship seriously. It was a whirlwind. It felt like a year's worth of emotion bundled into about 3 days. I deactivated my account and stuck with masturbation. I needed a date to pass over dinner with my friends. He wore a vest and a newsboy hat. Then introduced himself with a bow and a hat flourish. The night only got worse from there. He refused to eat any of the food because things on the plate were touching. It was f-king soup, and wouldn't shut his mouth during the 12 minutes of Seder. When it came time for his train home he purposely missed it so he could stay the night. Nope. After a movie with uncomfortable levels of hoverboob, I convinced my friend to come with me to drive him to the nearest train station. During the ride he thought was the best time to tell me he was schizophrenic but didn't take medicine because it was the devil. He tried to hold my hand saying that they were small and made him feel like a pedophile. The night ended with him telling me he was going to shitty on the subway and write my name in it. There was no second date. Matched with my cousin. That means your cousin swiped right too. Wincest? Went on a date with a girl who had already told her whole family about me before we even met. And she wanted me to meet them in person on the first date. Nope. Nope x10 circumflex 420. I met up with this guy I had been talking to a few weeks. Tall, dark and handsome. Originally from Turkey. World traveler. Etc. Anyway. We meet up for sushi and things are going great. Tons of stuff in common and then it was like a f-king psycho switch flipped. He started talking about how now that we were going out, I couldn't wear nail polish because he got weirded out holding hands with someone who wore nail polish and how he wanted to have a daughter but freeze her in time at the age of 4 so that she'd always be a daddy's girl and love him forever and how when we got old we'd have to have sex with the lights off since I'd be wrinkly and unattractive and just went on and on. I literally just stared at him speechless and tried to get through the date expecting, the very least, a free meal. But no free meal. In fact, more expensive meal. This guy had the nerve to ask the waitress to split the check when he ordered twice what I had. We paid. I stormed out and never talked to him again. This was back when Tinder first came out and wasn't quite as known as a hookup app. We met and had a great first date. Second date was even better. Things kept going for about 2 months when she told me she went out with me originally in an attempt for a dinner with schmucks type thing where her and all her friends would bring the worst Tinder date. We both really liked each other, but I couldn't get over how we started. I messaged a cute blonde girl one day. Got a response. And after a while of back and forth making each other laugh and getting along, I mentioned I'm in a wheelchair. And suddenly she was losing her f-king mind talking about our future and how she wants to explore places like Australia and I wouldn't be able to do that with her because of my wheelchair. I let her go on for a while to see if she'd ever bring it around to a normal person thought process, but it never happened. She lost her f-king mind. Not mine, but my brother's. He lives at home with my mother still. So my brother met a chick on Tinder. Took her on a date. Ended up bringing her home for a night and then that was that. A few weeks later my mother went to the backyard and noticed the door to her camper was open. There was a bunch of clothes and a pair of Uggs boots that belonged to this chick. Turns out she had been sneaking into the camper at night and sleeping there and doing drugs. My brother had no idea of this. And my mom called the cops immediately and it turns out the chick had a warrant out for her arrest. She's still in jail. I don't use Tinder. However, my roommate loves it. And she's brought back numerous visitors. Which is fine. Except for the fact that the apartment is tiny and we share a room. And also the fact that my roommate doesn't really care what I end up seeing. And, as it turns out, most guys don't care about having another girl in the room either. Some take it as an opportunity for a threesome. My roommate is my Tinder nightmare. Edit. Thank you for all the advice. But I really don't plan on confronting her, or blackmailing her, or taking things out in passive aggressive ways about this at this point in time. My post may have been a bit dramatic in calling it a Tinder nightmare. Yes. I've heard more of her and numerous guys that I ever thought I would. And yes, it was super awkward at first. But I'm pretty much over it now. Finally. Started seeing a girl off Tinder. It was going well for about 2 weeks and thought she was coming over to my apartment. She actually knocked on my door for 30 minutes. When I didn't answer she went around back and started knocking on my bedroom window. I went on a date with a guy and the entire time he was talking about how men are superior and how there have been scientific studies to show that women have an emotional reaction to the color red when they see it. I wonder why he was single. Should have asked him if men are so superior. Why aren't you trying to date a man? I dated someone I met from Tinder for a month. Seemed good on paper. Master's student. Yoga teacher. Cultured. Etc. Found out she was doing heroin and didn't consider that a big problem. I actually had to explain to her the definition of a high functioning addict because she felt that having a job and going to school meant the heroin thing wasn't a problem. We broke up and she went back to her junkie XBF. Bullet dodged. Edit. Lol, all the people PMing me trying to confirm if I was simultaneously dating their own TTYGF. If you find yourself wondering if I'm describing your GF, you should just break up with her immediately. I had been on a couple of dates with this girl that I met on Tinder and learned that she was really into the rockabilly scene. I found out that a local nightclub was hosting a rockabilly themed night and so I took her. She had dressed to the nines and we were having a great time in the club. Suddenly this guy accidentally tipped a drink on her 50s style dress. The guy apologized profusely. She storms over to grab her coat and bag and on the way out she just punches the guy in the face. Everyone in the club was shocked. I took her outside and told her she couldn't react like that and that's when she took her heel off and hit me square in the face for siding with a guy. Blood everywhere. I never answered her calls after that. Oh. And she used to be a stripper and cam girl. This adds nothing to the story but I just like telling people. Pew pew. I met this guy on Tinder and we had a couple really fun dates. I was pretty into him. So on our third date, I decided I wanted to have sex with him. He took me out for a really nice date and then he invited me back to his place for a glass of wine. One thing led to another and we started making out on his couch. fully clothed. But this lasted forever. I was ready to go. If you know what I mean. I didn't want to make out the whole night. So I decided to take matters into my own hands and I took off all of my clothes. Then he sits up, still fully clothed, and looks at me and says, "I can't have sex with you. I have a STD." Possibly most awkward moment of my life. I tried to be super nice about it, but I promptly got dressed and left. And as many of my friends have pointed out, I am extremely grateful that he told me. Edit. He did tell me which STD. It is incurable. That's really big of him. Nothing but props to that dude. En route to the worst date ever. This guy texted me from the burrito place we were meeting to tell me he'd already ordered me the salad. I repeat. Salad. At a burrito place. Also, is this the past? Was I now incapable of placing my own food order? Anyways, after arriving Oso with my salad ready, beside his plate of tacos, Oso he spent the next half an hour telling me about his model ex-girlfriend and how passionate their Oso breakup sex had been us last weekend. The final straw was Oso. Even after telling him I wasn't a big fan of smoking Oso, he literally asked a stranger for cigarettes and then chain smoked them beside me. A pua maybe? He's got the negging, the salad to make you feel self-conscious about your weight. The model ex-girlfriend to make you feel like you have to compete with her for his attention, also self-conscious about your weight since she's a model. And the smoking thing as a power play, to show what a strong independent man he is, that he doesn't care about your opinion. Pretty sad. Though. He's not gonna get anywhere that way. One time I messaged a girl. She didn't message me back. Matched with girl. Talked to girl. Got on really well with girl. Met up with girl. Got really close with girl. Had feelings for girl. Wanted relationship with girl. Girl didn't want a relationship and now we don't talk. Sometimes I think about her. As a man in a long-term pre-Tinder relationship, I'm really living vicariously through these stories and they are outstanding. Bless you people. Mine is probably pretty normal for most other people. But I drove about 25 minutes to meet this girl and take her to lunch. She was so boring and was literally on Tinder half the time. Haha. I kept swiping and swiping. Tens. Hundreds. Thousands of times. At first just the really hot girls. Then the mediocre girls and finally I just swiped blind. No match. Haha. Probably a bug. Comma both my phones refuse to match me with chicks. So I think my Fasaboom account is bugged. Weird. Sounds like the M1RR0R error. I met a guy who seemed chill. He looked cute. Was tall. And we liked a few of the same things, plus he was funny. We actually texted and talked on the phone a few times before we met. He was the first guy I had met this way, so I was trying to be cautious. Anyways. We went for breakfast. He had a bizarre self-esteem issue that resulted in him joking about me checking out our waiter, a middle-aged man. When he came back from the washroom he said, "Oh good. You're still here." And then told me this was the longest date he'd been on. We were at the 45-minute mark here. It was awful. He looked way different in person and would laugh to himself about things randomly. I was super uncomfortable but unexperienced in the dating scene at that point, so I just went along with it. The date ended with him giving me a quick peck. I was like, ugh. Whatever. And then texting Emmy a few hours later saying kudos on not shying away from that kiss. Which just seems super rape-y to me. Ugh. I decided to go on a date with a guy older than my usual age range because he seemed interesting. I show up to the restaurant and my immediate thought is, oh my god, he's too old for me. He proceeds to spend the rest of the date exuding arrogance and telling me about how he makes so much money and he's well on his way to being a millionaire, etc. And no. The restaurant was nothing fancy. All the while he is talking as well. His sport coat sleeves are getting ALLL and his guacamole. I did not say anything. At the end he walks me to my car and hugs me. I do the squirmies to escape because I am mortified he will try to kiss me. He gets into his car and immediately texts me how he had such a great time. I wait to say I did not feel like we had chemistry when I get home. He then proceeds to blow me up saying how could I pass up such a catch, a man who is tall, handsome, and rich, and how can you even know if you have chemistry from one date? Good riddance.